like to welcome you to the Finance Committee of the Grand Rapids Board of Education meeting for Tuesday, May 27th. The first thing that we have on our agenda is public comment. So, we have 3 minutes for public comment. We ask that you make sure that your comment is related specifically to the business of the district. You'll have 3 minutes. Laura Workman, will you come down to the podium?
Hi, I'm Laura Workman. I'm an employee of Grand Rapids Public Schools. I'm also a proud parent of 2 alumni and 1 current student in Grand Rapids Public Schools. They go to Museum High School and play sports through Ottawa Hills High School. We've had an exciting year as Ottawa Hills athletic parents. We've begun a boosters program that was something that Marcus Harris really was excited about and wanted to get started. That got started this year, and we've just had a great start. And we have some big donations that are just literally waiting to be recognized and accepted by you guys, and then moved to the board to approve 3 scoreboards to be on the outdoor fields at Ottawa Hills. That's softball, baseball, and soccer. This is a donation that from Meyer is going straight to Marcus Harris. I have the documentation here, and what we were waiting on. Missy's going to come next and explain it a little bit better, but we also have secured a donation for the installation costs, which was a big barrier for a lot, like years, that they've been waiting for this donation to be done. So we are ready to move forward, and we would like to move as fast as you guys can move forward. So we're here. If you would like to add us to the agenda, we would love that. But that's what I am here about. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Missy Jackson.
Hi, I'm Missy Jackson, and I am a proud parent also of a couple of students that are School of Choice students in Grand Rapids Public Schools, one that just graduated from the museum school this year, and then one that is a freshman still at museum school. And I've been a volunteer in helping get the boosters started as well. So I was asked to project manage the scoreboard project that Laura just referenced, and one of the huge barriers to GRPS accepting the donation for the scoreboards from Meyer was the installation costs. And so I took that on, and I went out to the community to raise the funds. And so actually, in the course of about a week and a half, we were able to raise the funding for that. It was overwhelming support from our community, and so we have a significant donation from Consumers Credit Union that has come in for $30,000, and we have a donation from Old National Bank for $1,000 that has come in. Those donations will come in directly to the athletic boosters. We also have donations that have come in from many individuals through a fundraiser that we have been putting together, selling decals. And I'm trying to think, is there any additional? I think that's basically, it's those 2 significant ones from businesses, and then individual community members that have come together. We have also worked with some of our suppliers to be able to get the funding costs, or I should say the supply costs, actually down. And so some of the actual installation costs will be donated as well. And so that's why the installation as well will be less than what GRPS was originally told it was going to cost, which, if you're willing to take one more public comment from Nate Willing, he can speak to that. Can I hand that to you? He walked in just now.
You can give it to him.
Okay. I apologize for that, but he has all of the documentation to support that as well, which is the final piece to support that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And then Nate.
Sorry, thank you for being good stewards of our 3 minutes here. The gist of that project that we would love the board to consider and finance is that there's a $30,000 piece of that budget that is Meyer Foundation donating. That piece of the budget, we would love to have you guys on board. We aren't totally clear on what your finance process is to adopt it, to receive funds. But if we could onboard the Meyer 30K, that is a gift that is straight to GRPS, so that in order for those funds to be recognized and a PO to be generated for the scoreboards, we would love it to hit this finance cycle rather than wait for another 30-day cycle, which probably doesn't get us installed by fall seasons. So we'd love to have you guys consider onboarding that 30K of GRPS direct dollars. There's another 30K of the install that our boosters has covered, that we can be a little bit more flexible with that. It'd be great if you could onboard that amount too. There's process to recognizing the donation that we're not totally clear of, so we're eager to take direction from you guys. And we've had really great counsel from a bunch of staff members too. Facilities has been great about sort of talking us through how this process goes. Dr. Mabin at Ottawa and Mr. Harris are super supporters of this project. We just need to make sure we get it into action instead of theory. But the facilities has been super supportive. We're eager to try and figure out how to help everybody come together and make it be a done deal and have all that stuff there.
Thank you.
Yeah. If you need supporting documents too, that's the other thing we can follow up with too. We have all of our paperwork along with it.
Thank you. All right. And the first thing, we have some action items. So Ms. Cribbs, I'll turn the floor over to you and you can take us through these.
Okay, I am going to start with our purchasing agenda. As we're ending our fiscal year 24-25, we are starting to look forward to our 25-26. Have a number of items that will be due start, like especially these first few as an example of renewals of software programs that we use for various purposes throughout the district, and their renewal date is July 1st. So that's why we're bringing them forward now, so we can get them processed through the board. So approval through finance, approval at the board level, so we can get payments made for that July 1st renewal date. So these first 6 items, we do have a long agenda, so I'm going to kind of summarize things as we go through, but you know, if you've got questions, stop me. But these
May I
first-
ask a quick question
Yep.
first? So speaking of the 2025 agenda, I'm sorry, budget. So things need to be to the board in June in order to pass for July. Is the process already started for the Booster Club at Ottawa for that to come to the board this coming work session?
That's what I was going to say. I know
Okay.
Larry Johnson and I spoke again today about
Mhm.
it, so we're close.
Okay.
And we'll be following up with the Ottawa Hills Athletic Boosters so we can get that
Okay.
moving as quickly as we can.
Perfect. Because I think it is 2 weeks from now, if I'm remembering correctly. Does that sound right? Our work session?
Yes.
So that just gives
And,
that
and
amount
even
of time.
if Ms. Cribbs and her team, and we've done this many times before, if there's something that needs to be approved in a timely manner,
Yeah.
it will go straight to the board. It
That's
will
what I
not
was gonna
say.
necessarily come to this committee first.
Okay.
So, we've done that many times before, so
Yeah.
that'll be no different. If it's something of, time is of the issue, then they will bring it straight to us as a collective body.
That's what
Great.
I was going to say. If we get our I's dotted and T's crossed, then
Yeah.
I'll definitely communicate through Ms. Williams that we're ready to move on it and ask permission to bring it straight
To the board in 2 weeks. Okay.
So we could see that in like 2 weeks potentially? Like, right, if everything goes, okay.
And so understand too, a lot of our donation process is something different than what we have to do with all of this.
Yeah.
Where we want to get into some more, if somebody's making a donation, we want to readily receive it. So we want to get out of the way of that. So there's no real barriers unless it just is some form of toxic charity or some of that other kind of nonsense where the board may say, well, the staff may say, maybe this is something we don't want to accept, and then they can give us that information why, but that has not been the case with this. My understanding is some things that needed to be buttoned down before it would come to us, and it was not ready for this meeting, and again, it has the opportunity to come to the full board at our next meeting.
And typically it just has to go, like in a normal scenario, just so I know too, it goes from whatever group to a GRPS employee, a director, and then a process before it gets to us, like a 2-week required process to get to us.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Like, I guess I'm wondering what the norm is. Or maybe you're not the one to
norm
ask.
for
I don't know.
donations or the norm for
Donations, yeah.
Well, again, donations can be a little different. So I know depending on what is needed for us to accept the donation, and if we have everything that we need to accept the donation properly, then it can come to us as soon as the finance department gets what they need. Whether it comes to this committee first or it goes to the full board at a work session or a board meeting.
Yeah, so that's typically, we just want to make sure we've got all the information that we need, that we've got it, depending on what it is, we've cleared it through, you know, it may come in through a building, but impact in other areas, make sure we've connected with that area, make sure we've got full funding, because that's the other thing. We've had questions over the years where somebody comes to us with an almost funding, and then GRPS end up picking up additional costs that we maybe really hadn't planned on. So it's just kind of working through to make sure we're all on the same page before we move things forward, so.
Thanks.
Okay. Going back to the purchasing agenda. So going to the 25-26, again, we've got several of these items 1 through 6 are related to some of our softwares. Systems that we need to pull through, they are all renewals. Moving down, we have, starting with some curriculum items. Again, items 7 and 8 with my perspectives and Read 180 and Math 180 programs. Those are programs that we've used for a number of years.
Maybe because of this is so much and so detailed, and because we've already had this to look at it, so maybe let's take section A. Colleagues, is there a question about any particular one in section A for Ms. Cribbs?
I have a question about, so understanding process. One of my concerns is where we fall in process and me not understanding it. So looking at some of these renewals for the next school year, I just keep coming back to how does this fit into the larger budget that we're going to be looking at?
So I'll use some of the MAS items. So as we were meeting with Craig Reeve and going through the MAS budget, we're going through these line items and saying, okay, what's the renewal on this one? What's the renewal on this one to get? What does our budget need to be for some of these, I don't know, I'd say more non-discretionary items? So, okay, we'll fit those into the budget, that's what it is. Also, then looking at things that maybe are more discretionary to say, okay, because some of these renewals are costing us more, we're gonna reduce some of the non-discretionary items as we go through. So that's as we build this budget, and as I said, 25-26 is still a work in progress, so I don't have anything to share with that tonight. But that's where the process that we're doing and working through is, as we're bringing forward these items, looking to incorporate them into the 25-26 budget.
Okay.
Go through.
So everything I'm seeing, unless it states otherwise, it's a single year renewal, right? Like I see there's a 6-year license, so obviously that's over a period of 6 years, but everything else is like a 1 year? Okay. And we're kind of splitting between like non-discretionary versus discretionary. Would we characterize all of these as non-discretionary in your mind, or from the district's perspective?
I guess and some of that, and when as we look through the curriculum items, I'm not a curriculum person.
Yeah,
I'm a numbers
right,
person,
yeah.
So I would rely on my colleagues that deal with curriculum.
But as they're presenting it, they're like, we're
Yeah.
using this, relying on this is what the teachers
Yeah.
need. Okay, so all of these are
And
non-discretionary.
some of them are tier 1, some of them get to the tier 2
Yeah.
supports and all of that as well. So that's where.
Okay.
Yeah, so I guess the, like Read 180, IXL, those things are discretionary unless they're considered part of the core curriculum, which I don't think they are at this point. So it would be helpful as we look to the next year large picture budget, are these components that the teachers have asked for? What's the feedback on them? How successful have they been? Whereas I know, like you talked about, Richard, some of it's core curriculum, we have to have it, we get that. So, but they're they're both under A right now. So yeah, like renewal of Montessori, we have to do that, of course, because we're keeping our Montessori programs. But IXL, maybe because it's in this, we can assume that that's something that is considered base curriculum, but we don't know for sure.
Well, I don't know if it's considered base curriculum, but these things are coming forward from the individual departments of the district through the superintendent to saying, these are what we are anticipating and our needs for next year. And so these are the things that the team is bringing forward on behalf of the district from their individual departments to say, we are planning for use for this for 2025-26.
So we're to assume there's some sort of evaluative system going on about whether this should, it's impactful.
Well, I think we should assume that, but I think furthermore, the questions for this would not be with Rhonda.
Yeah.
That would be with Dr. Roby.
I think that's where I'm kind of holding around approving without having some of that data to understand why these specific tools or curriculum are the tools without having some of that evaluation data. And I know you can't answer that. So I think that's just a thought out loud.
And it's I think it's more complicated today because we haven't seen the full budget. So this is the first time we're approving things for next year without having the budget for next year already. And I think that's probably the complication for our specific this week's agenda. But is the goal for us to review this and then we go back as a board next month and formally approve it? Or do we need some sort of are you looking for approval today?
Approval today.
This is approval today to take to the full board.
At your, I believe it's January 9th is your meeting.
June,
June.
Yeah, we know what you mean.
Thank you,
But how would we do that without knowing the full context of the budget and where there's been cuts and changes and a different, reimagining of the budget?
I guess at this point, it's one of those, like I said to Mr. Williamson, as we're building the budget and going through, if these are the things that the different departments have asked for, we're building those in. Then looking at, these items, even though some of them are substantially and are large.
Yeah, huge.
That it's going to be, we're going to look at other areas then. Or, I guess we're going to look at other areas besides what's here.
It would be helpful for me just to see how it fits into the larger whole.
Yeah. Because we're approving before the budget is approved. It's a strange position. I've never had to do that.
Well, we actually have been doing that consistently.
I've
We've
not
been
been on that team.
consistently.
Yep.
This is what we've done.
This is what the board has done consistently. So even outside of finance committee, the board has done this way. It's much the way you are already anticipating your income that you receive to pay your budget and pay your bills for next month. So we already know that these are some things that the district is planning to use for the next year's school year. They are planning the budget. This is again kind of literally the budget is in about 30 days.
Yeah.
So we will have to have it approved within 30 days. So this is the building of that. And these are some of the baselines. It's like at home. Your mortgage is included. Your water, your gas, your electric is included. These are the things that you need to run your household at the base level. You may not have included at this level discretionary spending on whether or not you're going to buy school supplies yet, or whether or not you're going to buy a particular appliance yet. But the baseline around the things that it takes to run your household, you've already got those kind of already pretty much built into your budget that you don't have to really keep thinking about those every single month. They're there. These are
Until
the
you
things
have an
that are
income
there.
change, then you have to think about those things at least once a year.
And we do know that, and unfortunately, until the state comes out with their numbers, all school districts are in the position that we have to project budgets, and we do this every single year. Even, that's why we have the several amendments. We're projecting based on what we are anticipating, and Ms. Cribbs does a wonderful job of keeping us on the conservative side so that we're not too upside down if the numbers somehow look different from what the state actually comes out with. And so, yep, this is the same work we've been doing. I guess I'm a little confused.
Yeah, well, we're trying to do things a little differently. So that's like this, what we're doing right now is working within a different construct. So the idea of reimagining our district means that our budget would be reimagined. So it's hard to say yes to things before understanding the bigger change.
For me, sorry, go
ahead.
No, please.
Well, I guess what I'm, as far as reimagining, so for us, that reimagine comes from giving the overview to Dr. Roby. And then when the information comes in to us, we are there making sure that she has already understood what our overview and our perspective is, not at the operational level where we're saying this one yes, that one no, this one
Yeah, I
yes,
didn't
that
wanna
one
do
no.
that either.
Because again, that is not the way it is designed. She gets to decide. And her team gets to bring forth and decide, yes, we are going to do these things for this school year. We are making sure that the overall perspective of what the district has laid, what the board has laid out, there's equity built into this. We want to make sure that children are, it's child-centered. These are the things that at this board level that we are looking at to see how it shows up. So it would be different if we're saying, you know, I want to know how foul wave or whatever particular goes to equity or is child-centered versus saying, why are you using it? Why did you choose this system? And so we have to stay at systems thinking, and we can't get into the minutia to say, because that's what her and her staff has done.
No
And
one's saying
so,
that.
well, it sounds like we are trying to unpack what the superintendent and her team are saying that they need for 2025, instead of us asking, is it meeting our overview? Is it, again, child-centered? Is it making sure that there's equity based in? Those are our overview. And
see, that's where I go back to, because we got a few of those presentations on just the financial position of the district, and like that's kept me up at night. And some of these things are good, and we either need to do or we really should do. So like E2020, great thing. We are gonna have to do that, right? MAP licenses, we have to do that. My thing is getting that context to even have a vision so that we know how this is fitting in. Like it's hard for me to do this with a larger context of a budget, even just like top lines, and having a projection of these are the items, these are the priorities, this is the, you know, discretionary funding we have to put into these areas. I don't have enough context is my only thing. I'm happy to come back on another board meeting or another committee meeting and address this. I need context.
I was gonna say, some of it, maybe we can feed in some context as we go through the budget amendment, because that's, the budget, as you see it, will look, staying structurally, the numbers obviously will be different. Structurally will be the same as the budget amendments. And we don't do something different on an original adoption than we do on our budget amendments. It follows the state and county manual of here's what goes in instruction, and here's what goes in pupil support, and here's what goes in school administration. And so that's what we follow the state and county manual and with our budget adoptions. So all of these things roll up into that recording. Some of these things, obviously these first group that we're working through are base funding, so some of them are regular general operating, some of them could be grant funded as well. So as we look through and all of those pieces and parts together. So I don't know how else to put it into context for you, because like our monthly financial statements follow that same structure of what it looks like. It follows the state and county manual, and so when we give you the monthly financial statements and said, here's the budget for this line item, and here's our actual expense, here's the percentage that were spent in general operating and where we are in grants, and then we've got the little memo in there that says these are items that we're watching for whatever reason. Sometimes it's as you'll see in this month, we've got some, because we haven't adopted our budget amendment 2. There's some things where budgets are gonna change in amendment 2, so those will get it revised as we go through. So you'll see some, this is what's happened, we got some new information, we're adjusting the budget in Amendment 2, so on the April financial statements, it looks a little out of
Yeah,
sorts right now, so.
I follow that. I'm just saying, as you're putting together the budget and seeing where those differences in monies are, that's the context that I'm really looking for, to understand how does this fit into that? How does it fit into the projection that you're creating, the budget that you're creating? I just don't know. In a sense, it's sort of in isolation.
As we work through with department heads, we're taking the information they're getting and working that through and what that looks like. And then, okay, this is, if you want to get into the weeds of, that's going to go in this account number, which will then roll up into this line item and the overall budget that you'll see.
For me, it's not even so much that. It's just like, I have total faith in in our staff for knowing, okay, we need to do this thing because that, this curriculum is supportive of that. My question is just, again, the larger context. Like, I don't need to know exactly how it's being paid for. I just need to know this is the section of the budget where it is. This is how, given the money we have, we're able to put the money into this, and we're doing the trade-off of because we're spending the money on the map licenses that we need, we aren't able to put money into this and that sort of thing. Just budgeting.
The changes.
Yeah, the changes, the adjustments, how do all the differences look?
Okay.
Well, it would be a bit more essential, because essentially you're asking for this all to be presented in a different fashion and formatted differently.
No.
Yeah, it is, because if you're asking to know what specific pot of money this is coming from in the budget process, then that looks different than what we have done and brought forth before. And so if that is the ask, then we need to make sure that is the ask, that we're all clear that that's what the ask is. So when the team goes to do this work, it is done in the way that you can receive the information and understand it, then versus them taking the time to put this together the way they have consistently put it together, and then thus say, no, this is not the way we want to see it. So I guess going forward for purchasing agenda, is it the ask that it is correlated to a specific line item on our budget?
No.
No, what I'm
That's what I was gonna say.
We're missing the
Overall,
point.
I mean, that's where it does say, we have general fund and a section for that. And you have a section
Yeah.
then for instruction and support.
I'm asking more because, to me, May and June are different from January and February, or like October and November and December for that matter, right? Because we were already in the middle of our budget. You
approved
had
it
created the
already.
budget, it'd been approved. We're at the end of the budget. We're facing a whole new financial year for the district.
And the specific ask was for a theory of action for how to get into a different outcome.
Well,
so the budget
Wait,
would
for-
need to shift.
where was that ask at? Because
Wait.
it was not here.
I
And
use that
so-
language. Maybe I should just say a
So,
change to the budget.
Hold on a second, let me clarify.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that we are speaking to the language that the board has spoken to,
Sure.
and not the language that individuals have spoken to.
Okay.
This is a collective work. It is the work of an entity. It is not the work of an individual. So just because an individual asked, that may not be what
That's
the
not what I'm
board has
referring
asked.
to.
So I am asking specifically of this committee so that Ms. Cribbs and her team can be able to bring a purchasing agenda that will get you the answers. I'm trying to ascertain what exactly is the ask from her so that she can, because she may not be able to answer you questions, and that may be where you have to speak to Dr. Roby and not Ms. Cribbs.
So if I can finish really quick, it's what I'm really asking. To me, it feels a little bit like the cart is ahead of the horse, and I'm not saying it is. It just, from my perspective, it feels a little bit like that because these are items that will fit into the 25-26 budget, but I haven't seen parts of the 25-26 budget, right? Or even top lines or like how it all fits together. I personally, I'm just saying this so like we know as a board, like this is my opinion, not anybody else's here. I'm just sharing this so we can come to some consensus, hopefully. The presentation of this, I don't have issues with. If I have questions, I can ask about it. I am just trying to understand, as we're preparing for this new budget, how does this fit into that whole? I need that 30,000-foot view so I can understand how this fits into that. And if I have questions, I'll ask questions about this. My thing isn't the purchases in particular. My question is, what does the budget look like that we're fitting this into? We're fitting this into something that we haven't gone through yet. I mean, you're working on it, but
Well-
I haven't seen it.
And she hasn't gone through, but she has also gave us particular details already of letting us know where we are for this year and what the projections are for next year. So that the numbers are, again, we've gotten some preliminary numbers, so it's not like we don't have any information about that. So we know that there's some preliminary numbers out there based on what is kind of floating around between the House and Senate and governor and all of that other stuff and what that money could actually look like for us. So it's not, and again, I'm taking it back to your personal budget. If you haven't received a 20% decrease in your pay, you are still going to build you're going to project just like you would your personal budget, the same here. It is, we don't know if there's going to be this decrease yet. It could be, could not be. We do know that there is some projections around it, and the team has already been conservative in their aspects and approach to this to bring us these things, but these are some of the baseline things that they know we will be needing for 2025, 26. And thus, I guess, if that is, it's like, I don't know, the electric bill, like the electric bill for the district. It's not listed here because that's not one, because it's an ongoing service and we don't have to enter a contract and we don't have a period that has to end because we get that ongoingly. However, this is things that we know that we need to enter and re-up our contracts for so that that system is online for when we're ready to start using it when the contract period ends. But as far as top line budgets, what exactly do you mean with that? So are you saying that you want to know if this is coming,
Kim, can I just respond to that before? Okay.
Because we interrupted before and that wasn't his point, so I would like to clarify. Do you want to know if this is a expenditure that goes specifically to salaries? Do you want to know if this is an expenditure that goes specifically to school services? Do you want to know, like, I guess I'm trying to
Even a little
get
more
it
top
so
level.
that-
No, that's a good question. I think a little more top level even than that is more. So we've projected out, you've projected out how much money, best estimate you can give, given everything else going on, how much money we're working with this year with the budget, right? How do the parts fit into that greater whole, right? Some of it's non-discretionary, like we have to spend this money on Title I stuff, so it's got to go to that, right? But other things, like if we're choosing to spend money on this curriculum over another thing, that's a trade-off. And it's helpful for me to see the budget to understand where that trade-off is happening. Not that I disagree with it, not that any of it, but like just to understand what we're working from. It's like we're spending money before making the budget, but that's not really happening because you're making the budget. I just need to see.
It's kind of going along at the same time.
Yeah. And that's why I keep asking is I want to see those top lines, I want to see those
Right,
pieces
yeah,
so I
I
can
was
see the
gonna
greater
say,
whole.
But it changes daily, sometimes hourly, of where we're at in the process.
I understand
and what
that.
we're working on, so it's kind of one of those, as soon as you put it out there and then it changes in an hour, and then you're gonna say, so
Yeah.
it's just extremely fluid right now, even though I know we're coming up on the deadline, believe me, I know we're coming up on the deadline. But it's just very fluid right now, and trying to push to say, we need to set ourselves up the best place that we can be financially.
Yeah.
There's some things that we want to do that right now will be very challenging, so, okay, where can we, I'm going to say, I don't even, continue to trim in what that looks like so we can get to some things that are definitely a priority.
Yeah.
And that's what we're working on right now, and pushing on each other as I'm working with departments and saying, I know, and what I've said to, if not all, most of our department heads of, we're not in a case of needs and wants right now, I'm to essential needs. So.
And it's helpful.
What are your essential needs going forward, what it is?
And it's helpful to understand in a bigger context of a budget. Like this is fine, this is a purchasing agenda, right? Like this, my concern isn't with how this is presented. My question is, how do those essential needs fit into the context of the larger budget? And what portion of the pie does that take up?
Yeah, and that's what we're trying, and like you said, we spent all day.
Yeah.
working on it,
And I know,
looking at
and
going
it
through line by
changes.
line,
I know. And I have a lot of sympathy for that because everything is changing. But for me to vote to appropriate money towards something, I need I need to be able to see the budget that it's fitting into. Like, I'm not against doing it, it's just I need to see how it fits into the larger whole.
And I think, just want to uplift two things. One, Richard, you talked a little bit about, oh man, my thought froze away.
It'll come back.
It will come back, never mind. No. Never mind.
Ms. Melvin?
Well, I just wanted to make sure, the only piece that I think might be missing from this conversation is what I was trying to say is that what I'm talking about is not a cut in salary, like the analogy you were using. I'm talking about we were wanting to reprioritize, like you said, Ms. Cribbs, that it's important to our board, and we did speak as a whole, that we would like to see a reorganized budget so that we can pay teachers more, knowing that right now it's so tight.
Yep.
So this was the year that the budget was going to look different. And so I think it's normal for us to say, can we put these two things off, the purchasing agenda and the blanket purchase orders, both of which relate to this coming year's budget? Can we do that as a committee of the whole with the budget, with our finance committee amongst the entire board, so that we give you the benefit of those 2 weeks, I think, or 3 weeks before that happens, and then focus on the amendments, all of which relate to the budget we've already approved.
Not all of the things on the purchasing agenda relate to 25-26.
That's true, and there's bond pieces in there too.
There's bond
Correct.
pieces in there, and there's summer school pieces,
Yep.
and
I'm happy to divide the question on those things.
Yeah.
Well, and furthermore too, the thing is that basically what you're asking for is what we are here to do anyway, which is basically bring this budget to the entire board. And so it is not a matter of us saying we want to approve this budget, but it's a matter to bring this to the entire board. So we were here to address if there was any particular questions that were somehow out of line or that you wanted to get a better understanding of. But if it's a matter of simply, we're going to take that vote anyway. Is there a motion to take this to the full board? And we can, if it's a question of that, and if that is the issue, then we can just take the motion and take it to the full board, which is what would happen anyway. That is commonplace. Committee does not approve anything for the entire district. The committee approves to take it to the board, and the entire board will make the decision. So nothing gets approved or denied in committee. It's just a matter of taking it to the entire board for their review.
See, I disagree with Sarah on this. I don't want to, or excuse me, Trustee Melton on this. Sorry.
Really okay.
I'm okay if we have another fight, like, I know it's a pain in the neck, but I'm okay if we come back to this as a committee to address it. Even if it gets to the whole board, it's hard, I can't fit this in, I can't square this into the whole context without understanding what the budget we're being presented with is.
But they won't have it ready until the board meeting. That's why another date might not work. But I mean, that's up to you guys.
But again, the fact of the matter is whatever information that they would give to us, they can provide to the whole board. It's not a problem. And it's, in this case, if you have a problem, you want some more top line information, I think that's what you want to look at, then we can talk to them as well. I believe committee members have meetings set up with Dr. Roby for this week. It would be a great time to address with her what it is that you would like to see or better understand about the budget that's been brought forward. And then again, at the full meeting of the board, you should by that time have hopefully your questions answered enough for you to decide whether or not to approve or not approve the purchasing agenda at that time, but not at this time. This is just a matter of letting it go to the board, entire board, moving it from committee. So I guess based on that, given that there's some things the time is of the essence on as well, is there a motion for us to just move this to the entire board while Dr. Roby and Ms. Cribbs get the other information, and you can talk with Dr. Roby more specifically in your individual meetings this week to tell her what it is that you would need, so that by the meeting that this purchasing agenda comes forward, you can have the answers that you're looking for? Does that sound fair?
Yeah, but are you guys asking for something? I don't think anyone's asking for something different, just for the context of the changed budget. Or am I misrepresenting that?
I just want the context. It's not even a changed
it
budget.
sounds like
It's just the
something
budget
different.
for
It is
the.
just a
budget.
And so as far as how much or where it's been scaled down, I think that's what you're asking for. That is something that you can have
Yeah,
those
we already talked about
conversations with Dr. Roby.
Yeah, I did.
So what I would ask, is there a motion for us to take the purchasing agenda to the full board? And this again is just again, for us to have this same thing, and you'll get it as the full board, while at the same time you can get some answers to your questions, so that if by chance is it something that needs to come forward, if it's something urgent, Ms. Cribbs is gonna bring it anyway.
Are any of these actionable before the full board meeting?
No, that's what I say, that's why we're bringing it now, so it would be there to the full board on June 9th.
Okay. Yeah,
Not June 9th.
thank you. Yeah, for dealing with us as we go through this new approach of scrutiny. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, so I'll make the motion to take this to the full board on June 9th.
Well, don't give a specific date, because
Thank you.
again,
I'll
'cause
put
changes.
if something happens, if we have
Okay.
again, we had to do a special board meeting, or we want to put it on our work session, which could come up sooner, we don't want to be that specific, but it is to go to the full board. And so,
I make a motion to bring the purchasing agenda to the full board.
is there a second?
No, I'm not ready to,
No, I'm not
Okay.
either.
I'm just
All right.
not ready.
Well, I will second. And so, is there all in favor, please say aye.
I make a motion to have some dialogue on this.
I think we've been having dialogue for.
Well, we're in the motion.
On the
Like, we're
concept of the
voting, we
motion.
can't
Oh,
discuss
is there
Yeah.
something, a problem with the motion?
I remember my question, my thought. Richard, trustee Williamson said, you know, this is budget time, and so I wonder for next year, when we're having a similar dialogue, you know, what do we need to have in place so we don't have this level of maybe we will always have this level of conversation, but is there a way to maybe just kind of collaborate to get these items in a way that provides us that clarity and that context? I think for me, when Richard said that, shared that, I was like, yeah, even, this feels simple to me, so it might not be simple. Like, even if we're looking at A1, if it's the $54,000, I was like, oh, what did we pay last year? Is it, are we seeing a trend of these items increasing? Because that will still give me a snapshot with some of the items you shared today, because I feel a little bit more clear with some of the things you said in scripts.
So, and again, I think that is bit more micromanaging. I think that's what the superintendent will say, and that to the point that you want to know whether or not each line item has increased or decreased from last year is a bit more micromanaging, and really should, again, our scope should be, is it there to meet our objectives, and not specifically, because
Our
even if
objective
it's
is the
more,
budget.
our objective is the budget, and it is a budget that should be, again, around specific themes. Is it child-centered? Is it equitable? Is it helping us if we're saying we want to kind of cut things back? Is it doing those things? Is this an item? A specific item may not do it, but the entire budget might be doing that. And so for us to get so specific to a particular line item is very much a micromanaged situation, because we are up here and we're not at an individual fire hydrant putting out a fire. We are supposed to be up here. We wouldn't even see the fire hydrant.
Ms. Cribbs,
And-
when you presented the budget last year, if I'm remembering correctly, there was a comparison. Is that correct? So
That's
there
what I
was,
was gonna
yeah.
say, our overall budget book
Yeah.
that we put together, and we'll bring in it, so it will have last year's final actuals.
That's what I thought.
And the amendment to, and then the future year budget. So it's
Yeah.
like a 3-year and all
So
of
that's what I was
them.
thinking. So I think, again, like I think to respond to you, I think in future years, in the context of the budget that you're already going to be presenting, this would be easier to say yes or no to, because we would know the context of the budget. And this year, we're just thinking that there will be such a shift in how things are done because of our priority change and, you know,
That's
the
what I was gonna say,
presentation we've
and
gotten.
Several years back, many years back actually, we used to bring Amendment 2 and the future year budget at the same board
Yeah,
meeting, the
yeah.
same, so it all went through. But as the state has continually
Mhm.
not
Mhm.
provided as much information, that's where we started to make the separation, because obviously we need to get Amendment 2 wrapped up, where we headed with that,
Mhm.
but then kind of hold the future one as late as we can to get the
Mhm.
best information that we can.
Okay.
on what that looks like. So that's where it's kind of gotten separated, and it's been a number of years where we separated and brought Amendment 2 in May and held the future year as long as we could until like mid-June,
Yeah.
but knowing that we do have to adopt a budget by June 30th.
Yeah.
So we are in the middle of a motion right now, so we shouldn't really be discussing, but I will add, I understand it's a moving target. I totally get that, right? And it's probably deeply frustrating for you and many other CFOs in many different school districts, right? Because you want to know what we're working with. My challenge is, it's not so much I'm trying to look down at a ground level view here. Mine is just, it is really a 30,000 foot view, is understanding how do these pieces fit into the larger whole? I'm concerned about the larger whole because that's what we're asked to be concerned about, and making sure with our like fiscal responsibility as a board, how those pieces end up going into that whole. So that's why I'm eagerly keep asking, what are we going to see? What are we going to see it? Because that's how I know that this stuff fits into the whole.
Would that be enough, though, Trustee Moreno, to do the context within the full budget of the line items we're referring to? Okay. Okay.
But we are in the middle of the motion.
So again, all in favor of sending this purchasing agenda to the full board, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, same sign?
Nay.
Okay, when there is a tie, it goes to the full board, so it will go to the full board.
Cool.
Okay, next we have B, and again, given the lateness of the hour, I am going to say, Ms. Cribbs, if you could give us a little expedited
So
version.
next up is the blanket purchase orders. So again, you've had it, we've had a lengthy discussion. I'm sure several of these items will be in that same category of what you've got concerns about now. Again, we've got several items on here, oops, and it doesn't print very well on screen, so I apologize for that. Of what the items are, what we put it under reason, some of what that looks like going forward. So again, in the interest of time, I don't know if there's some of them that you want to highlight, or if we just
If it's okay, there is one that I had asked about before, and I just wanted greater clarification. All of my previous statements sort of remain with this as well, so I'll cut it short on that. But with Amerigus Healthcare staffing, what is it they do, and how do they fit into the special education department?
This is one that came about, I think it was about a year ago, when we had trouble with special ed aid vacancies. We were able to find this outside company to help us cover special ed aid vacancies.
Oh, okay.
Like a tongue twister for me tonight, but
Yep.
that's what it is. So they're just covering our vacancies. As we are able to hire special ed aides, then they come on staff and we don't use the outside company.
Oh, okay. Was
So-
that a blanket purchase order last budget as well?
I believe it was.
Okay.
We
Okay.
come to the board at some point.
That's what I was gonna say,
I don't know
yeah.
through what venue, but.
Okay.
And part of the change there, I think last year we had 2 companies, and then this year we're just moving forward with the 1 company.
Any other questions about particular items?
Do you have reservation, fellow trustees, about bringing this to the board versus seeing it again within the context of the budget?
Yeah, all my statements remain the same.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
So if we are there as well, I would ask, again, is it a motion to send this to the full board?
Well, I just want to clarify. So the thinking that you guys have right now is that you'd like to meet as a committee prior to the board on the same day, are you thinking? Or I guess I'm wondering logistically what
By
benefit
me,
you're
I don't,
seeking.
I just do not feel comfortable in, to me, voting to move this forward is a tacit endorsement of it, and I don't feel comfortable doing that without greater context. Like, I'm just not prepared to do that.
So we do have the ability as a committee to reach out to our fellow board members just to let them know as well. So I know in the past when there's been question, when I wasn't on this committee, for example, there were a lot of questions that I had, so I could go back and watch these videos, but then also I could ask them questions about it. So it would be fine for us to do the reverse and let them know, we've approved this to come to you, we haven't approved it ourselves. We've approved it for our future discernment within the context of the budget. I don't know if that helps at all, but just wanting to make sure that your concerns are heard.
And particularly with regards to this, again, the information that you're asking for, everyone will get.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's not that you will simply get it. Everyone on the board is going to get that information for better understanding and clarity. So when it comes to the full board, everybody will have the same information to make a decision. So again, I will ask, is there a motion to send the blanket purchasing order to the full board for review?
I'll make the motion to move the purchasing order, the blanket order to the board.
Is there a second? I will second. And then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign?
Nay.
Okay, and then we will send it to the full board.
With some information along, yeah.
C, please.
Okay, so moving forward to our budget amendment, starting with the general fund. We have the resolution first, big picture, hopefully this comes up. Okay, there we go. Total revenues, as you'll see, we're amending, we are looking at increasing revenue in general fund. So total revenue will increase by projecting 4.3 million to a total of 264 million. We'll get through the details in just a second when we get to the memo. Likewise with expenditures, and you see the various categories there. So we've got the increases and decreases by categories that the state requires that we report in. You'll see expenditures are increasing a little bit at 244,000. So total expense at 276,000. So overall, it's a better picture for us. So coming to the memo, that's a little easier to walk through, and I'm going to slide over a little bit. In our original fund balance at June 30th, 2024, we were at the $40.5 million. Our original adoption had a use of $11 million. Amendment 1, we increased that use by another $5 million. But this time we're actually decreasing that use by about 4, so we're at about $12 million use of fund balance this time. Which is good news. So just walk you through some of the things that did change. And again, I'm going to stay pretty high levels, but investment income, we're projecting up slightly. If you remember, line B, property tax revenue, and lines O and P are all related to the foundation allowance. So even though we did lose another, through audit, another, I want to say 22 students on FTE, as I'm doing my projections, I put an estimate in there. So fortunately, my estimate was enough to cover that loss of pupils and actually bring a little bit more back into estimated revenue. Act 18 and enhancement, going back up to line C and D and E, those are revenues that we get through the ISD, so those are updated projections. For line C and D, we got updated projections in April. May, actually, I just got last week, so that one's kind of in the numbers, not quite. You'll see probably a budget variance on that in the amendment, just because I didn't have it when we were actually doing the paperwork. Other adjustments. This is actually a big increase for us. So we had a couple unexpected things that came through. Our former company that we used for LTD insurance was the Standard Insurance. We went out for a bid and changed to a new company. But apparently back in 2014 when we went to Standard, they set up a reserve fund as part of our premiums. So we got a refund of that reserve fund that they had accumulated of about $464,000.
Same thing just happened to me.
So brought that into miscellaneous revenue. The other part of that big change is the ISD refunded us a little bit related to the special ed itinerant program. So if you remember, our itinerant staff through last year were employees of the ISD. This year they're fully our employees. So as they closed out their books, there was a refund of about $24,000 on that one. The other thing that they've adjusted is our center program tuition. So for our students that attend the ISD center programs, they invoice us. as they closed out their books last year, all of the districts were kind of overpaid what they actually ended up. So they've been holding this refund all year long and looking to see where 24-25 came in. And as you know, it's rather than to refund us and then turn around and bill us
Yeah.
tuition, we just kind of say, well, let's see where you are in April.
Mhm.
So as they figured out their projections for this year, it's looking like we're not actually going to have a tuition bill this year. And we're actually gonna get a refund of about $190,000 of tuition that we paid last year. So those are kind of unexpected things in the last few months that have developed. Also all one time, but we'll take them going forward. Moving down, following general operating again. The biggest adjustments you'll see there are the 147A and the 147G categorical revenues. As you've learned more in the last few months, that 147C, 147 categoricals are very complex. And I'll just say it, I made a mistake on 147A in Amendment 1 and forgot that it was quarterly payments. So I adjusted to what was showing up on our January state aid payment, and that was only 1 quarter of payments.
Were you doing it as monthly, or were you doing it as annual or biannual?
Usually on our state aid status, they give you an annual amount.
Yeah.
But I forgot that 147A, they adjust quarterly
Yeah.
what it is. So
Okay.
even this adjustment, when I was doing this, I didn't have what the last 2 quarters were gonna be, so the last 2 quarters are still estimated.
Okay.
And there's really not a super good way for me to project other than what it shows up on state aid. So
Yeah.
I'm kind of operating on an estimate, so it could still change again. The other thing that's in that number too is our 147G. If you remember, that's the 3% reimbursement for employees. We didn't know what that amount was when we were doing Budget Amendment 1. It came on our February state aid status. So bringing on both the revenue and then when we get down to expense, you'll see we're increasing expense as well. On that, kind of sliding over to grant revenue. One thing to mention on this, our Amendment 2 on grants isn't necessarily a decrease in a grant expenditure. It's a decrease in our estimate of what we're going to spend for this fiscal year, if that makes sense. So,
Can you explain that one more time?
yeah, so I'm just gonna look at section 41 bilingual, what we had budgeted in there. We're still gonna get our full grant award amount. We're just thinking it's what we're gonna spend before June 30th is about $1.2 million less. We'll roll that over into next year and spend it next year. So there are a couple of new adjustments in there for under state, the Great Start Readiness Program. We did receive some additional funding for that program. 99CCNAF, that is one of the donation memos that you'll see shortly coming through as well. Or we got state funding to support payment that's going out, sorry, misspoke there. And then section 104 benchmark assessment is actually a new grant award for this time period as well. Other adjustments under athletics, that's an adjustment to our projected revenue in from our GRPS foundation. It gets complicated, more complicated as we move into expense. So we've got our salary and benefit adjustments, and they look a little strange, but I'm going to kind of highlight what it is. So we've got continued vacancies. Instruction and support are both instruction. We've got the vacancies there. We've got the increase in expense for 147G payments out to employees. That's about 1.5 million. So those are actually increases that are noted in there. We've got the increase in expense for 147C2. We picked up the revenue in Amendment 1, but not the expense. That's one of those state aid categoricals where they send us the money and then 2 days later we send it back to them. So we missed picking up the expense in Amendment 1. The other thing, in Amendment 1, we had put in the 7% increase on health insurance. But now that House Bill, I think it's House Bill or Senate Bill, 6058, I don't remember if it's House or
House
Senate,
Bill.
but 6058 is still in limbo
Mhm.
at the state level. And at this point, I'm thinking it's not gonna move before June 30th, but
I think you're
could be
right.
wrong on that.
I think you're right.
But it's, at this point, I wanted to pull back as much as I could to narrow up the gap on our budget, so reduce that expenditure. That's about 1.3 million. The other thing that we did, we've got some better information at this point about open enrollment changes that individual employees made that were effective January 1st. So when we were doing that Amendment 1, we didn't have that Rhonda Crooks is on this plan and this is how much it's going to cost. So as we processed those all through and got some better bills, we've made some adjustments there. The other thing that we did in conjunction in doing that was also take a look at retirement. As you've learned, we've got multiple plans, so we did a lot more actually looking by employees about what plan you're on and what that looks like and cost it out. So we've got a reduction on that one as well. So it's like we've got some increases and decreases in there, and it looks like a little strange with the split between instruction and support. It's not that we added a ton of non-instructional staff. It's just the way some of those allocations broke out between instruction and support. Going back up to line AV, then we've got substitutes and instructional services. The big change to that, and it kind of comes back to those contracted services for special ed aides. Last fall when we brought it to the board, we didn't really know how many services we were going to need. So we budgeted at what we brought to you and brought forth. So fortunately, we haven't needed as much as we had originally budgeted and brought forth, so we're bringing that budget down. That's the biggest part of that decrease of 500,000. The other one is AX on materials and supplies. If you remember last month, we brought forward the new math program Bridges. There are some of those materials that we're expecting to receive in before June 30th. So went ahead and brought that into this year's budget as well. The other one there, you'll see that decrease in center program tuition of 150,000 there on line 8Y. The grant-related adjustments, since we did the detail up above, we don't go into the detail on the expense side, but list out what some of those grants are. Got some other decreases there for various things under purchase services. Trying to line those up where we actually think things are going to line up. The other thing, then BE, our electric expense is trending upwards, so putting some more budget in to cover our electric costs. And then some just miscellaneous adjustments down below to balance everything out. So that's where you'll see the total expense adjustments moving forward. So that is general fund general fund amendment 2.
Okay.
I was going very quickly, but any questions or?
No?
Questions? All righty.
No.
Is there a motion to move forward the budget amendment general fund, budget amendment 2 general fund to the full board?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay.
All right, so moving through kind of the same thing, we've got the resolution, we've got the big picture, combined all of the special revenue budget, revenue expense, and then by each fund, but again, I'm just gonna spend time more on the memo. So food service, since that's the largest one, we do break that out separately. We've got some adjustments in there for sales and state and federal revenue. As we're working to not provide services to some non-GRPS schools, have been working with especially East Grand Rapids during this year, and so during this year they have moved their doing their own middle school food service and their own high school food service, so we've made some adjustments there. You'll see it down to under the payments to other school districts as well as, so with the revenues coming down because they're getting their own revenue for those meals served, and we don't have those payments to other districts, so I'm trying to sort that out as best we can. The other adjustments up under local revenue, that 800,000, the biggest part of that is we also run the food service for the center programs that the ISD operates. Some of that has additional costs related to that, so after some discussion with the ISD, we did bill them some additional revenue for last year and are looking to do that for this year. So it's kind of got a catch up in there for last year and prior, help to cover some of the additional costs that it takes to provide that food service as well. Continue to struggle with the food and merchandise costs and what those look like.
Yeah.
So you'll see an increase there as well. That is our special revenue.
All right. Any questions with regards to the special revenue fund? Is there a, yes, you do?
Just define what merchandise means.
It could be like the spoons to ladle things,
Yeah.
or the tray, or yeah, non-food items, but things you need, the
Yes.
napkins.
Okay,
the-
thank you.
Is there a motion to move the budget amendment 2 for special revenue fund forward to the board?
So moved.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Okay.
Moving right through debt retirement, it's pretty straightforward, doing a slight adjustment on property taxes and other under expenditures. There are times where, Brian, so if a property owner goes and gets a tax adjustment for prior years and they get refunded, we put it through expense. So we've got some adjustments on both property tax revenue and other expenditures, but nothing major on that one.
Any questions? Is there a motion to approve budget amendment 2 for debt retirement fund?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Wonderful. Okay, donations.
I'd say now moving to the fun things. So we do have a few donations. One of the first one is for the Museum High School. As part of their work with XQ, they've been connected to this Carnegie Future High School network as well. So have been able to get another $100,000 grant to continue their work.
Wonderful.
So
Great.
looking for approval.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve to the full board, send to the full board the donation from Carnegie Foundation, FHS Network?
Motion to approve.
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? Next.
And the next donation is from the Wiggy Foundation. For many years, they have been a supporter for City High Middle and the Center for Pharmacology, to provide some additional resources for those programs. So, looking to bring forward this donation of $50,000 for those programs.
Questions? All right, is
No,
there
that's
a
great.
motion to accept the donation to send to the full board, the Wedgie Foundation grant?
Yeah, so moved.
There a second?
Seconded.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign?
And our next donation is from Experience Grand Rapids for furniture donation for Ottawa Hills High School, and then you'll see the details of what that looks like. Have that approved.
Any questions? Is there a motion to send to the full board Experience GR Ottawa Hills High School furniture donation?
So moved.
So,
Second.
okay, I didn't care. I
No,
didn't
no,
catch
it's
what you
okay.
said, that's all right. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? And then the last.
And one last donation, we received $2,750 from the Gene Haas Foundation to support our robotics team, DQ.
That's great. First of all,
Wonderful.
motion to approve, yeah.
A motion to approve the Gene Haas Foundation Robotics Grant by Ms. Melton. Is there a second? I second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign? All righty.
That's what I was gonna say, that brings us to our monthly financial statements again, that we're tracking as expected. There's some items that you'll see that look a little strange, we'll adjust those. Typically, you'll get a May financial statement. We'll go ahead if it's okay, because by the time we bring it forward to June finance, hopefully the board will have approved budget amendment 2. So we'll just incorporate that, even though it will be after the May 31st date, so hopefully those will line up. But we don't do a June financial statement, monthly financial statement, we'll just wait till the annual year-end close on that one. So the May monthly financial statement will be the last one that you'll see until we work through all of year-end. But, so you'll see here, even through April, we've got a lot that's trending. There will be a lot of transactions that process through in May and June. And as we actually into July, as we process invoices back that we receive after June 30th as well, that relate to materials and services received before June 30th. So there's a lot of work that goes on even after year-end close. But and this is, you've got special revenue, and I'm not going to spend all the time on those. If you've got other questions or comments, I believe that was it for the agenda.
Okay. Wonderful. We have nothing for policy. So this meeting is adjourned. Thank you. And then